those glasses. Come on, everybody, help yourselves and save time. Here we are, Phyllis. Phyllis. Hey, Sally. Come on, Sally. Come have a drink. Excuse us, everybody. Excuse me. Here we are.
Sally.
Cheers.
It's cider.
Yeah, I know. It ought to be champagne. But I can't afford it as an amateur golf champion, not on the salary your dad gives me.
That was a great match, Bob.
Thank you, Phyllis.
That last shot in the rough, my heart was in my mouth watching you.
Oh, Bob's never nervous when he plays golf.
Well, he's nervous enough now.
Oh, you could show a little more enthusiasm.
Well, but I'm thrilled you won the cup. I couldn't be more pleased.
Well, you don't act as if you were.
Would you want me to do a cartwheel or make a speech?
I'll take a cartwheel. Sally?
You know, you better get changed for the dance.
Oh, yeah, I suppose so. Excuse me, everybody. Yes, fine. Cheerio.
You treat him badly, you know. Well, he seems to like it. He keeps asking for more. Bob's a darling. You ought to recognize a good thing when you see it. You're lucky. Am I? Maybe I don't want that kind of luck. I did. I don't think you should rhyme lips with eclipse.
Madam, you have no soul for poetry.
Of course I have. It's good.
I taught the boy all I knew. Marky has left me far behind. I could never have played the game that he
Don't you think Fanny looks awfully pretty tonight? Pink always suited her particularly.
How about giving me something for the paper, Dick? I'm still short of half a column of local news.
News? Even if I had any, I wouldn't dream of giving it to you, Joe. Not since you printed that piece about the loan we refused to.
A duty of an editor is to his public. Well, within the law of libel, of course. And you didn't give it to me. I dug it up myself.
Yeah, but you could have asked me first.
Now, no arguments, you two. More coffee, Dick.
Thank you, my dear.
Love your new hairstyle. Makes you twice as pretty.
Does it? And maybe I wasn't so pretty before.
That's not exactly what I meant.
What did you mean?
Now, what about tomorrow night, Sal? There's a new picture on at the local.
I don't know. Mother wants me to go with it to a meeting.
Excuse me.
Sure. Excuse me.
You have a mania for privacy, Dick.
You know, a banker's bound by the rules of his profession. If we gossiped about our client's business, how could they trust us?
All right, tell us, how's business in general?
But you won't quote me?
I thought so.
You thought what?
Nothing ever happens in Deanbridge. Nothing at all. The rest of the world is full of terrible and exciting events, but we are barely alive. My son wins the golf championship. Your daughter has a new dress. Mrs. Stanford bakes a new cake for the women's...
What's wrong with that? I bake very nice cakes.
Nothing. Nothing at all. Oh, except when a barn catches fire, or perhaps somebody gets drunk, and it's a front-page sensation.
Isn't that as it should be? At least all our troubles are small. That should make us all feel happy.
It doesn't make me happy. I've got a paper to get out.
Bob, this is the third time you've cut in after 1 minute. They'll start talking.
About the two of us? I hope so.
Oh, you're horrible.
Tomorrow night?
You can always try.
Is it true that Elliott's are closing the factory?
Why don't you ask them?
I did, but they wouldn't talk. I've heard that half the orders have fallen off and the men are standing idle. But
You're a very transparent man, Joe. And even though we've been friends for 30 years...
40. Don't forget, we were 8 years at school together.
Joe, we need new blood in this town, new capital, new enterprise. But where's it to come from? It's only the big cities that attract it. Who would come to Deanbridge as an investor?
So why not? We've got certain advantages. We're on the main line. We've got lovely countryside. Why shouldn't people come and settle down here?
Now, don't quote the pamphlet you wrote for the Chamber of Commerce, Joe. Plenty of towns have the same assets.
Hello, Mr. Newton.
Hello, my dear. Enjoying
Good evening,
yourself?
Mr. Sanford.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Sanford.
Congratulations, young man. I only hope golf won't go to your head. You ought to leave room for other things. Customers' accounts, for instance. Would you like to dance, my dear?
morning. Can I see the manager, please?
I'll see if Mr. Sanford is free, sir. What name shall I say?
Preston. John Preston.
Just a moment, sir.
Mr. Sanford will see you now, sir. This way, please.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Preston, sir.
Hello, Mr. Preston.
Mr. Sanford.
Do sit down. Well, all this appears to be most satisfactory. Well, now you'll want a deposit and a drawing account.
Whatever you suggest, Mr. Sanford. Of course, in the countries where I spent the years since the war, I've done most of my transactions in cash, but perhaps that isn't customary here.
Not often, unless you're in the black market.
I'm afraid I wouldn't know where to find that.
No, of course not. You plan to settle in Deanbridge, then?
Yes, if I like it sufficiently.
Oh, I hope you will. I was telling a friend of mine only a short time ago that we need some new blood in our town.
It's a very attractive town.
Do you think so? Forgive the personal question, but how did you come to think of Deanbridge, Mr. Preston?
Well, I'm a man of very sudden impulses, Mr. Sanford. With me, the first thoughts are always the best and the decisive ones. Whatever success I may have had in life, I owe to that.
Yes?
During the war in Africa, I had a friend who came from Deanbridge. At least he was always talking about the forest, the fishing, the home-brewed cider, kindness and simplicity of the people. When he died, I was with him. And then later, when I got a little tired of roaming about, the name of Deanbridge came into my mind, so, half in fun, I thought I'd come down here and take a look at it.
Well, that's very interesting, Mr. Preston.
You see, in the years that I've spent away since the war, I've seen a little bit too much of noise and excitement. That's the reason I came back here, for some peace and quiet. I'm not altogether the idle type, so I guess something will turn up to keep me occupied.
Oh, I'm sure it will. In the meantime, if I can be of any help, just let me know.
I certainly will. Thank you very much.
Goodbye, Mr. Preston.
Goodbye.
Oh, Bob, see that this Swiss draft is cleared and these securities deposited. And Bob, a bank employee is not supposed to express any opinions about the size or state of a client's account unless authorized by the bank and in the course of his duties.
Yes, Mr. Sanford. It wasn't an opinion, it was just sheer envy.
Yes, correct.
It's all very well to say you're not interested, but they've been shut in your father's study for almost 2 hours. You know what your father is. I'll have to get it out of him with a chisel.
Oh, must be some sort of a business discussion.
I know that. Well, what business can be so urgent that this Mr. Preston turns out of the house right after dinner? Couldn't it have been settled at the bank? Your poor father needs a rest like anybody else.
Dad mind?
Isn't Bobby coming in tonight?
Don't call him Bobby, and he isn't.
Don't snap off my head, dear. I only asked a civil question. And why shouldn't I call Mr. Newton Bobby?
Because it makes him sound like, well, what he is, immature and a little ridiculous.
Sally, I don't know what's got into you. You seemed to like him well enough only a week ago.
That was a week ago.
And at your age, that's practically a lifetime. Well, I suppose you'll make it up, as usual.
I'll be at the bank tomorrow at 10, but I rather wanted to get this bit in first thing in the morning. I do hope that you'll forgive the intrusion.
Oh, don't mention it. This is important, and I'm glad to be of help.
I hope I haven't spoilt your evening, Miss Sanford. Or yours, Mrs. Sanford. I do realize how much you must value these peaceful family occasions. Having no home of my own, I rather forget how pleasant they can be.
Oh, don't you worry about us, Mr. Preston. Dick often brings his work home. We're used to being alone.
I still feel a little guilty. Perhaps I can make amends. I've got 2 seats for the music festival that starts next Saturday. Perhaps you'd like to come to the first concert with me and then have dinner afterwards.
Well, I'm not a great lover of music myself, I'm ashamed to say, but Sally, why, Sally's quite a pianist. She goes regularly.
What about it, Miss Sanford?
Didn't you mention going to the music festival, Sally?
Well, I wanted to, but,
Why didn't you let me take you then?
thank you, Mr. Preston. That's most kind of you.
Fine. Fine. Well, I'll call for you in the car around 5 on Saturday. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Mr. Preston. Well, isn't that nice of Mr. Preston? It'll do you good to have a day out.
You needn't have been so obvious.
Obvious? But I thought it would please you.
I'm sorry, Mother. I'm in an awful temper today. Of course I'm pleased. Now I think I better take my nasty temper up to bed.
That's that. I want to move in on Monday.
You drove a hard bargain, Preston.
That's a strange remark for a banker to make. I mean, you're all supposed to have first mortgages where ordinary people wear their hearts.
Well, you see, the Elliot family has been in Deanbridge for 200 years. That factory of theirs was started over a century ago.
Yes, and seem to be run along the same lines as in 1800 and something. No, I'm sorry. I've got no sympathy for such people. They're like people who crawl on the roads. They're just as dangerous as the speeders.
Progress is necessary, I agree. Still, the Elliots could have got a much better price if they'd waited.
Well, I knew they couldn't afford to wait, so whatever price they might have got is quite immaterial. However, please don't think that I'm not very grateful for all the help that you've given me.
You've certainly wasted no time, Preston. Less than 2 months in Deanbridge. Bought an office building, a factory, a farm, doubled one investment, made a good profit on another.
I told you once that with me the first thoughts were the best, didn't I? Well, this is only the beginning. You and I are going to make Deanbridge a hive of industry yet.
Fowler, I have the cheque. You can complete the transfer papers now. Yes, he wants to move in Monday. Not losing any time. And he wants dismissal notices sent to every employee. He intends to rehire some of them, but entirely at his own discretion. All right?
Is it true, Dick?
I wish you wouldn't burst in like this, Joe. Is what true?
Well, that Preston's bought the Elliot factory, that he's going to manufacture some new synthetic material, that he's dismissing all the old employees.
Now, wait a minute. Are you asking questions or telling me?
It's news. News at last. I've got something real I can write about.
Well, there has been a sale. The rest you must find out from the principals, not from me.
Oh, you bankers are like clams. By the way, don't you think we ought to put Preston up for the town council for next election? And how about inviting him to sit on the hospital board? We've got to show our gratitude somehow.
Well, let's wait and see, Joe. Curb your enthusiasm. After all, Preston is a newcomer. Let's reserve judgment until he fully proves himself.
I thought he'd done that to your satisfaction.
Well, his financial standing is sound. His plans, though unusual, show considerable vision. But I'd like to reserve my judgment a little longer.
Yeah, spoken like a founder member of Society of Bankers. Oh, very well. I'll go and put my paper to bed. Very exciting this week. Somebody stole me a couple of ducks.
Oh, good evening, Mrs. Sanford.
Why, Bob, how nice of you to drop in.
Where's Sally?
Why, didn't you know? She's gone to the festival concert with Mr. Preston.
Oh. But she promised to...
I'm sure if she knew she had a previous engagement with you, she wouldn't have forgotten.
It wasn't exactly that. I told her I might get a couple of tickets to that amateur show over at Wallingham. I only got them at the last moment.
Well, these things sometimes happen, and you know how fond of music Sally is.
Yes, I guess they will. Well, I'd better be going.
Good night, Bob. And don't take it to heart. Really don't. There are lots of pretty girls in Deanbridge. Why don't you phone Dorothy Gregg? I know she'd be glad to go.
Yes, well, good night, Mrs. Sanford.
Bouteille de Chambertin, 45.
Oui, monsieur.
Mais du vrai Chambertin.
Simplement, monsieur.
If I said something, you suddenly looked rather surprised.
No, well, you speak French. like a native.
I can assure you any native would know I wasn't a Frenchman in 5 seconds, but sometimes it does help. Did you enjoy the concert?
Oh, I loved every minute of it.
Excuse me, sir, but there has been a mistake.
A mistake?
Yes, your table. It has been reserved. You shouldn't have been seated here at all. So if you would care to move to the upstairs...
I care to do nothing of the sort.
But, sir...
There was no reserved sign on this table when we came in.
Oh, that is most regrettable.
What is also most regrettable is your lack of efficiency and bad manners. I don't care if the people who reserved this table eat in the kitchen.
Well, really, sir.
You heard me. I want no argument. This is our table and I intend to keep it.
Yes, sir.
You must forgive the show of temper, but I just cannot bear being bullied by people of that type.
It's all right. I just wondered.
Yes?
Well, do you feel this strongly about everything?
Everything worthwhile? Yes.
Like a restaurant table?
It's a matter of principle. Insolence and bad manners can ruin life. Anyway, let's not talk about that anymore. Tell me about yourself.
There isn't much to tell.
Truly feminine answer.
Well, really, there's nothing very interesting about me. I've lived in Deanbridge all my life. Oh, except for one carefully conducted European tour where I and 10 other girls were escorted from one museum to the next church and from one castle to the next ancient monument. Oh, but I did like France.
Oh, well, there you differ from me. I hate it.
Really? I thought everyone loved Paris.
Well, maybe it's because I didn't see it as a tourist, at least not as a willing one.
Were you in the war right from the beginning?
I was in it far too long, which is why I don't want to be reminded of it, if you don't mind. So about?
But you must have seen so much of the world. So much beauty, so many interesting and colorful things.
You don't notice the beauty when you're sweating and fighting. It isn't even colorful or interesting, except perhaps in one's memories. And I hate reminiscing.
Why?
I once told your father that with me, the first thoughts were always the best. If I decide on something, I like to go ahead, dead straight ahead, and never look back.
What if there are obstacles in the way?
You break them down.
You can't?
There's always a way.
You're very confident.
Sally, I guess there are really two kinds of life. There's yours, sheltered, perhaps even a little dull, but sunny and straight. And then there's the other kind, the kind that you find in the jungle, with all its crooked paths, with danger lurking behind every bush, where you have to fight every step of the way. That's the kind that I've known, and I don't want to remember it. Because now, I believe I may have found the first.
Ours, you see, it's a personal matter.
Yes, I thought so. I didn't think you'd be getting so excited about anything to do with the bank. But why don't you come round to the house this evening?
I can't do that. That's the last Well, you see, it's about Sally.
Sally?
Well, these last 6 months, she's changed. I mean, as far as we're concerned. I know that before she met Well, what I mean is, well, we had grown up together, and I decided to marry her and no one else. Ever since we started in school together,
You decided. What about her?
Well, she never said she wouldn't.
Bob, you know I like you. Your father and I have been friends for most of our lives. I consider you a very desirable son-in-law.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Sanford.
But
thank
I'm
you.
not Sally. And though you may consider me an old fogey, I'm not so old-fashioned as to dictate the choice of my daughter's husband.
But if you're on my
I
side...
didn't say that. I said I wasn't against you. But it's up to Sally. Well, now, why don't you talk to her?
Yeah, I would if I could. I've hardly seen her these last few months. When she isn't playing the piano, she's driving with that Preston. How she can waste time on an old guy like...
Preston is 36. No doubt he's ancient to someone of 25 like yourself. He's also a close friend of our family. In the 7 or 8 months since he's settled here, he's done a good deal for all of us. So don't be too critical of him. And now you better get back to your job. Oh, and Bob, I wouldn't give up all hope, you know. Oh, John, everything settled?
Yes, we got the contract. Ought to keep us busy for about 18 months.
Excellent. And I owe you an apology.
Why? Because you were overcautious? That's part of your professional equipment, Dick. I like you all the more for it.
I don't like myself. If I hadn't been so, well, doubtful, I'd have taken up a larger share of the financing.
Well, there'll be other opportunities, I'm sure. I'm a little tired, Dick. Fools always make me tired.
Fools?
well, call them a little too conservative. I convinced them within the first 5 minutes that I could turn out cheaper goods better and more quickly than anybody else, but it would have been beneath their dignity to have seen it then and there. It doesn't matter now, it's all signed and sealed.
By the way, don't forget the hospital board meeting tomorrow.
What?
Don't tell me you forgot about your election last month.
Oh, no, of course not. Dick, I think I've waited long enough.
Waited for what?
To ask you if you would have any objection if I asked Sally to marry me. Is that such an absurd idea?
Forgive me, John, of course it isn't. There's nothing funny about marriage. At least I don't think so.
Well, then why are you laughing?
Because only 5 minutes ago someone else asked the same question.
Who?
Young Bob, you know, Joe Newton's son. He's working here in case you haven't noticed.
That boy.
That boy has loved Sally since they were both knee-high.
Dick, please don't think that I'm doubting Newton's sincerity.
You really meant it? About yourself and Sally?
How long have you known me, Dick? 8, 9 months? You ought to know by now that I rarely say anything I don't mean.
But it's so sudden. Or is that what young girls are supposed to say, not their fathers?
Dick, I love Sally deeply and sincerely. That's why I wanted to talk to you before I told her.
So you haven't told her yet?
Well, I know how you feel about Sally, Dick.
I appreciate that. Well, I've no objection at all if you talk to her. I admire you, John, your energy, your vision, your industry. And if Sally accepts you...
Oh, she will. It's a lucky day for me when I came to Deanbridge, Dick. A very lucky day.
Sally tells me you play bridge, Mr. Preston. Would you like a game now?
You know, John, I'm coming to the conclusion that my wife thinks the most important thing in life is a bridge game. And by the way, dear, you promised to go through those bills with me before I send out the checks.
Dick, we went through them this afternoon.
And you know what your handwriting's like. I can't make head or tail of that second page.
Couldn't it wait until tomorrow? I don't want to be... Well, come to think of it, I'm not so sure of some of the items myself.
Would you excuse us for a few moments, Mr. Preston?
Yes, of course. Sally, I hope you noticed.
Noticed what, John?
Your father's exquisite tact.
Dad's always tactful, especially with Mother.
Yes, but he knew I wanted to talk to you alone.
Oh?
Sally, when I came to Deanbridge 9 months ago, I had nothing except money and memories.
Memories that you wanted to forget?
Well, I got rid of them all right. Let me explain. The money helped me to acquire a factory, a farm, a place in the community with good friends and helpful acquaintances. There was only one thing I need. A wife.
And you picked me for the part?
Oh, I know I ought to have done it in the proper romantic manner. I should have taken you out in the car, provided you with soft music and champagne, and then in the moonlight said, "Sally, my darling, I love you. Will you marry me?"
You must think I'm awfully silly.
Isn't that like to hear?
I don't know about all girls. I only know about myself.
And what is it you know? I love you, Sally. I love you because you're sweet and beautiful. I love you because you have everything in the world a man could want. Because you have everything that I want. Sally.
Now you're really being romantic.
I knew the first time that you and I ever went out together.
Bob, what are you doing here?
I've been waiting
For me?
for your visitor to leave.
Bob, I'm sorry.
That's an easy word. You step on somebody's toes, sorry. You wreck a fellow's life, sorry.
You're so bitter, how can I talk to you?
I don't want to talk. Not words, they mean nothing. Sally, I knew it was real between you and me. Oh, you like to pretend, the usual girls' game. I didn't mind. But not this.
Bob, we're going to be married, John and I.
You can't. You can't.
You can't prevent it.
Sally, he's not for you. There's something strange about him. Something I can't put my finger on. You may think you love him. He may have impressed you. But I know
Bob, what do you know? I'm not much younger than you are, and I'm a woman.
What's that got to do with it?
Oh, we could argue all night and all next year, and I still couldn't make you understand. I love him, Bob. Now, please go home and don't be angry with me. Anger won't help.
I'm not angry with you. I'm angry with him.
Well, that's even less reasonable.
Reasonable? Is there anything reasonable about... If I could only make you believe that it isn't myself, not my own life I'm thinking about, but yours, that I'm afraid for you.
Well, you needn't be, because I'm safe. Safer and happier than I've ever been.
First of all, gentlemen, it is my pleasant duty to welcome a new member to our board, Mr. John Preston. Though a comparative stranger to our community, he has been a most generous benefactor to our hospital and has recently undertaken to guarantee a substantial part of the cost of the building of the new wing. I am sure that he will prove a most valuable asset to the administration of our hospital. Mr. John Preston.
Dr. Underwood, gentlemen, there's not very much that I can say except that I'm very conscious of this honor, and I do realize that I must offer more than just material assistance to the work. However, there is just one thing I would like to add. I believe that suffering is unnecessary. I believe that pain exists in the world today because people are too stupid or too lazy to do away with it. And that is why I believe that the work that we do between these walls is so important and so wonderful. Thank you.
The first point on our agenda is the appointment of a part-time consulting psychiatrist.
A psychiatrist? But ours is a general hospital.
The need has been felt for some time to have an additional ward for nervous and mental diseases.
Don't tell us, Doctor, that lunacy is on the increase in Dean Bridge.
I have no reliable statistics as to that, but our hospital covers a wide area besides the town proper, and it has happened in the past that mental patients have had to be put into the same ward as surgical and other cases.
That can't be very satisfactory.
I'd call that an understatement, Mr. Sanford. Now, a very favorable opportunity has arisen. I understand that Dr. Walton is back in this country.
Peter Walton, but he's a Dean Bridge boy.
I believe so. His qualifications, of course, are of the highest order. And he is not only a psychiatrist, but also a psychoanalyst.
A psychoanalyst?
Yes, Mr. Preston.
Of course, I'm not really qualified. I mean, I'm only a layman, but, well, I don't altogether approve of this Freudian mumbo-jumbo.
Gentlemen, I can assure you that Dr. Walton not only has an international reputation, but that his books are standard works, according to the experts.
And he's a Dean Bridge boy. His father had the best cider mill in the county.
That, of course, makes the whole thing quite decisive.
Gentlemen, I'm afraid we cannot waste much time on this discussion. We have many points to cover. But I'm quite sure that members can have no real objection to Dr. Walton. Shall we take a vote? Perhaps a show of hands. Will those in favor kindly indicate in that manner? Good. Then it is agreed, with one abstention, to the appointment of Dr. Walton as consulting psychiatrist. And now, Mr. Sanford, perhaps you will read your report on the fundraising campaign for the hospital.
I'd like a word with you, Mr. Preston.
Oh, it's you, Newton. What is it?
You know quite well what it is.
Do I?
Sally thinks she loves you, but you don't love her. You don't love anyone, except maybe yourself.
Look, why don't you just go?
Shut up. I'll do the talking.
Go right ahead.
You're going to give her up. She isn't right for you. And she'd never be happy.
Suppose you let Sally and me be the best judge of that. Now, why don't you go on home and put that thing away?
It's different now, Preston, isn't it? You can't act so superior.
You think a gun makes all that difference?
It evens things up. You've got power and money, and you've got Sally. I just have a gun, but we're equals now.
Don't be such a fool.
All I have to do is pull the trigger, and we won't be equals anymore. Or you will be dead, and
Where will you be?
I don't care.
So you kill me and live happily ever after with Sally, is that it? You're an even bigger fool than I thought.
You're a smooth talker, Preston. You think you can talk your way out of this?
No, I don't think so, but I know that you're going to change your mind.
Why should I? Why shouldn't I kill you? I hate you enough.
Because you aren't the killing type. Do you think I've never seen real killers before? It's only in books that a murderer gloats over his victim.
If you don't shut up, I'll...
You see, I knew you couldn't do it. I just wanted to give you a chance to find out for yourself. Now, why don't you go on home and forget about the whole thing?
Well, that looks just about right to me.
Do you think it's dry enough?
I don't think MD will notice.
Dr. Walton, I suppose you remember the editor of our local press, Joe Newton?
I certainly do. It's nice to see you again, Joe.
Well, you must excuse me for a few minutes.
This is quite an honor for our little community. A famous man settling here, and a native son at that.
Prodigal son, Joe.
We're all delighted to have our own prominent psychoanalyst. I'm sure you'll have a great success.
You see, everybody in this town loves to talk, but nobody wants to listen, so
Now you have a man whose profession it is to listen. Do you think they can afford the luxury?
Well, that depends on the right publicity, Peter. Now, look, if you were to write a special article for the Deanbridge Mail on mental hygiene... Hello, dear.
Hello, Doctor. Mother, Mrs. Bringley is dying to ask you some questions about the wedding, and you can answer them much better than I.
Excuse me.
See you later about that article.
Cigarette?
No, thank you. I don't smoke. John doesn't approve of women smoking.
John?
John Preston, my fiancé.
And like a dutiful bride-to-be, you follow his commands.
Well, when they're sensible. And John's ideas usually make sense.
You know, it's a strange feeling to hear you're being married in a few weeks. Last time I saw you, you were a little girl desperately unhappy because your puppy had to be destroyed.
I never dreamt you'd remember that.
I remember. How you hated me because I was the one to put him out of his misery.
Well, I guess I wasn't very sensible then.
But now you are, thanks to John.
Oh, he's quite wonderful, Peter. You know, he only came to Deanbridge a short while ago, and already he's one of our leading citizens. A director of the bank, owner of our largest factory, and a leader in all the charity affairs.
A pillar of the community, no less.
Now you're making fun. Well, there he is. Excuse me, please.
Hello.
How are you, Tom?
There's you, right.
Glad you could get here, too.
Darling, I thought you'd never get here.
I'm sorry I couldn't get away from the office any earlier, darling, but I had a couple of buyers there. They went on and on. Dr. Walton, I presume. I'm John Preston, among other things, your landlord.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yes, my company owns the building in which you rent your office. As a matter of fact, I had to decide as to whether you were a suitable tenant.
I'm glad the decision was favorable.
Oh, John's decision was really against his better judgment. He doesn't believe in psychoanalysts.
I didn't exactly say that, Sally. I just said I didn't think any human being had the right to invade the mind of another, to pry into the privacy of his thoughts and his dreams.
You mean a man's mind is his castle?
Yes, exactly. All you seem to be able to do is to tell an unhappy man why he's unhappy. Well, I don't call that really being very helpful.
Sometimes when he knows, he's no longer unhappy. However, I'd be the last man to start an argument with my landlord. He might raise the rent. Thank your father for me, Bob. But tell him I don't feel quite up in an article about should grandmothers marry.
I don't really think he expected you to.
What's wrong?
Doctor, you know about straightening people out? I mean, when they're all confused.
Well, I can sometimes help them to do it themselves.
I need help.
What is it?
But this has nothing to do with dreams or complexes.
Well, that's something I can decide later.
Can hate be an illness, Dr. Walton? Can it make you sick, as if you had a fever?
All hate is a sickness, Bob. Sometimes it's a fever, too.
I often feel as if I were choking with it. I want to get away anywhere. But my mother's an invalid. It would kill her if I went away. So I have to stay here in Deanbridge, where I can see him every day.
Him?
I'd rather not mention his name. It's a man who took something from me. Something that mattered more than life.
I know.
You know? Well, how could anybody know? How can anybody guess what I've had to go through? What I'm going through now?
But you're going through it, Bob. You haven't run away yet.
I wanted to kill him. I didn't even have the courage to do that. And he laughed at me. He's laughing at me inside every time he sees me.
Listen, Bob. I could tell you that time helps, that you'll forget about all this. I could give you nice, easy words about resignation, manliness. But I won't. All I can say is, come and see me whenever you feel like it. It'll probably help you to have someone to talk to who understands your problem.
Thank you.
Remember, I'll be here. If I'm busy, just wait. I'll be glad to see you anytime.
Thank you, Doctor.
I hope I'm not disturbing you, Doctor.
No, Mr. Preston. Come in. Is this a professional or a private call?
I don't exactly know yet.
Well, take your time about making up your mind. I finished with the last patient for the day.
Doing all right?
I've only been here about 10 days. Can't complain. The rent's safe, Mr. Preston.
Please don't laugh at me, Doctor. I'd been meaning to come and see you for about a week now, but... well, I waited because I had to be sure.
Sure of what?
As I said to you once before, I don't altogether believe in all this mumbo-jumbo, and I hate things I don't understand. But now, within about a month of my wedding, when I've got to get my head clear and my mind rid of...
Rid of what?
You've got to help me, Doctor. You know all about dreams, don't you? Well, I've been having very bad dreams lately.
We all dream, Mr. Preston. 90% of the time we spend asleep is filled with dreams. Most of us don't remember them very clearly, but many people mistakenly think that they never dream.
I'm sure I never did. Until about a week ago.
Why don't you make yourself comfortable and we'll talk about it.
Tell me, Doctor, can dreams be coherent? Can they mix reality and fantasy in a kind of poisonous hodgepodge? Can they go on and on like a cereal?
3 questions all at once. The answer to all 3 of them is yes. What kind of dreams?
Nightmares. Dreadful, sickening dreams that I can't help remembering. It's got so bad I can't even go to sleep. You won't talk to anybody about this, will you, Doctor? I can be sure of that.
I know you consider me little better than a witch doctor, Mr. Preston. But I can assure you I'm bound by the same medical ethics as any physician. You're as safe talking to me as you would be talking to yourself.
I want to be a lot safer than that. I'm tired of talking to myself. You see, in these dreams I'm somebody else. I'm conscious of assuming the identity of John Preston.
Somebody else?
Yes, a criminal. His name, somehow I know, is David Garrity. He deserted in France during the war, became involved in black market deals, made a lot of money, and then when things got too hot, ran away.
But how do you know all this in your dream? How is the second identity established?
Because there's someone else. A woman. She's more than a friend. Her name, Sylvia.
You say you know all this, I mean in your dream. But what happens? What do you do?
It's night. I'm alone in the house that I bought for Sally and myself. She doesn't know about it yet. It's a surprise as a wedding present. The wind's prowling around the house, battering at the windows. In this first dream, which I dreamt over and over again, it is midnight. I'm spending the night at the house to supervise the workmen who are coming early in the morning. I'm getting ready for bed when...
Who is it?
Sylvia.
Is that the only welcome I'm going to get, David? Or should I call you Mr. John Preston?
Why did you come here?
You think you can burn everything like that paper? Oh, no, David. That would be too easy.
What do you want?
I waited too long for you to send for me. So, here I am.
Look, if you think that you can blackmail me...
Blackmail? Oh, David, I wouldn't do that. I've only come just to claim my share. Not only of your money, but of your life. And now that I've found you, we must be together. Always.
She reached up suddenly and kissed me with the old familiar passion, and then I knew I had to kill her.
Who are you? What do you want in here?
Don't be afraid, Preston. I had better call you that, even though we are alone. I did not come to harm you.
This is my house. You've got no right to come in here.
And I understand why. You see, I know that you have killed her. That she is in the other room, silent and dead.
You know?
I followed her. I've been following her for months, and I was outside, watching. I could have stopped you, but that would be the last thing I wanted to do. So I stood by the window and watched you kill her.
But who are you? What do you want?
Oh, my name does not matter. I was Sylvia's husband.
That's a lie. She never had a husband.
Oh, yes. I married her when she was 17. I was married to her all the time that she was with you and all the others before you. I hated her. And I loved her. I suppose sooner or later I would have killed her myself, but that was the only way to get rid of the poison she became within me. So you see, you have done me a good turn, and I'm grateful. It's no use hating me. It won't help you. We are linked together, you and I, forever. And you must believe this, or you will be very unhappy. I know that you will want to kill me because I know what you have done. Well, don't try it. We are like soldiers fighting on the same front, or men digging their way out of prison together.
Stop! I've had enough of this madness. Now get out!
And don't be a fool. You have nothing to fear from me, so long as you behave. Now, come on.
We carried her outside and dug a grave near the house. He put the body inside and shoveled earth over it, covering her blonde hair, her face, and her body. Then we leveled the ground and put a few stones over the shallow grave. It didn't take long. When it was all over, he went away. The wind was howling and raging again, and I was alone.
And that was all?
Yes, that was all. What have I done to deserve such nightmares? Why does it have to happen to me?
Mr. Preston, was that all of the dream?
Yes, it was. I had the same dream. Always the same dream, several times. But that was all.
Come along and see me tomorrow. It's important. Same time. I'll be here.
John, you forgot our meeting.
Oh, did I? Isn't it at 11:30?
No, it was at 10 o'clock. We waited for half an hour. I phoned you, but you weren't at the office.
I'm very sorry, Dick. Something very urgent came up at the factory.
The factory? But I phoned there, too. You ought to check with your secretary. She said you hadn't been there.
Well, I wasn't in this. I was in the designer's room.
Oh, I see. Well, anyhow, everything's fine. We're getting that allocation of dyes we wanted. They're pleased with our export figures.
Oh, good.
John, I've been thinking, why don't you combine business and pleasure and take Sally to Paris instead of Rome?
Paris?
Well, you speak the language and Benny can't come over now. You could discuss that new summer order with him personally. Half an hour's talk would do more good than 50 letters.
No, Dick, no.
But why not?
I told Sally once, I will not go to France.
Well, she mentioned something, but a few days.
I'm sorry, Dick. Maybe later.
Well, of course, if that's the way you feel about it.
Operator, would you try to get Mr. Preston's new house, please?
I'm sorry, sir. There's no reply.
Thank you. Hello, Preston.
Oh, hello, Doctor.
Didn't you get my message?
No, what message?
I telephoned you twice at the factory and at the house.
Well, I've been very busy, you know. Was it important?
I think it was for you.
For me? Oh, you're thinking about that talk of ours. Well, you can forget that. I'm perfectly well now.
Are you sure?
Of course I'm sure. You modern witch doctors, you're all alike. You see, and you're erratic in everybody. I sleep like a log. No dreams.
I'm very glad to hear it.
Oh, you'll be coming to the wedding, of course.
Yes, of course.
Will you have a drink?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Dorn, don't you think it's too...
Oh, please, Mother, it's the latest fashion.
And it fits beautifully. I never saw a more radiant bride.
I bet you say that to all the girls.
Now just slip it off, dear, and I'll finish the hem. I'll answer it.
Yes? Oh, hello, John. Here she is.
John? Oh, darling, if you could see it, but you aren't supposed to, not until the day. Well, my wedding dress, silly. When, tonight?
Yes, it's the first festival concert of the year. And it's a kind of anniversary for us, too, isn't it, darling?
Oh, I'd love to, and it was sweet of you to remember. All right, I'll be waiting for you. Goodbye. Haven't you heard? John went away for a few days, but I'm expecting him back today. Was it something urgent?
Well, yes.
Well, Peter, you're a great success. More patience than you can handle.
Success, Sally? Mine's a hard-breaking profession. The only measure of my success is whether I can help people, and sometimes I feel that... Tell me, when are you getting married?
On the 7th, just 3 weeks. Time's gone so fast, I can hardly believe that
You're quite sure, Sally? Quite sure that John is... that you want to marry him?
Oh, really, Peter, you sound terribly serious. Of course I'm sure. That's John now, back exactly when he promised. John, darling, what a lucky coincidence. Peter Walton's here. He wants to talk to you.
Oh, does he? Well, I'd be glad to talk to him. Make some coffee, darling.
Yes, of course. Excuse me, Peter.
Hello, Doctor. Taking time out from listening?
Hello, Mr. Preston. I had hoped you'd come to see me. I've been waiting for the past 3 days.
Waiting for me? Well, I've been very busy. A man who's about to be married has to put his house in order, you know. So I can see you sometime next week. I'm always glad to talk to you anytime.
I don't think you should wait that long.
Do you have to go out after your patients, Walton, rope them in like steers?
I don't usually do that. Goodbye, Mr. Preston. Oh, would you apologize to Sally for me? I have a patient coming at 5.
Oh, yes, of course. Are you a mind reader, too? How did you know I was coming tonight? I didn't even expect to myself. I thought I was through with the whole business. No more dreams.
But you weren't.
No. I was all right while I was away, but the other night, a few hours after I saw you at Sally's...
Another dream?
Yes. This one was a little longer, a little more complex. Time was so strangely telescoped. I don't even know if I can remember it all. I'm tired. I'm terribly tired. My head shooting pains. I was back in the garden alone. And suddenly I knew that I couldn't bring Sally back there into that house while she was lying out there in that shallow grave under those stones. I had to get rid of the place, and somehow in my dreams I did. Of course, the agents were a little surprised, but I made some plausible excuse, and somehow they got it off my hands. Somebody I'd never heard of bought it, and I was very relieved. Until...
Don't do it, Preston.
But I sold the house. I can't risk.
I know. I bought it.
You bought it?
Yes. I want to be near her now that she cannot hurt me any longer. You don't have to worry. Remember, you and I are friends now, and allies.
Isn't there anything you can do, Doctor? Isn't there something that you can give me? Some drug? Anything?
I could give you something to keep you awake, but how long would that work? Sooner or later you must sleep.
Well, then something to make my sleep dreamless. Well, isn't there anything at all that you can do? Can you do nothing at all except listen? Is that all you're learning?
Have you ever thought of postponing your marriage, Mr. Preston?
No, of course not. Why should I? It's probably nervous strain over work. Some perfectly natural and normal explanation. Well, Dr. Walton, thank you. For nothing.
Another dream?
Yes. You know, Doctor, this is getting to be quite absurd. Last night you were in my dream.
Was I?
Is that all you can say? Do you dream peddlers never commit yourselves?
Well, Mr. Preston, you don't want to lecture on psychoanalysis. It happens in most cases, however. Sooner or later, the analyst must appear in the patient's dream. You spend a lot of time with us. Our conversation sticks in your mind. Your unconscious associates us with your desires or thoughts. Many women fall in love with their analysts. It's a passing phase. Others grow to hate them, or identify them with their fathers or husbands. So don't blame me for appearing in your dreams.
But I do blame you. You gave me quite a scare. At least, in my dream you did. In my dream, it was evening. I was walking, happy and at peace. And suddenly I stopped. There you sat, with the stranger. You were talking. I know you were talking about me. Then you looked up, straight into my eyes. I felt that I had to get away, that something terrible would happen if I stayed. So I started to run.
Thank you.
Defying John. I thought he disapproved of you smoking.
You shouldn't have such a good memory, and John isn't such a tyrant.
Sorry, I seem to keep on saying the wrong thing, don't I? Now, to what do I owe the pleasure of this visit?
Oh, Peter, please, really, I'm grown up now. I'm not the child you used to know.
I realize that. You're grown up, with grown-up worries and inhibitions. What is it you want to know, Sally?
Well, you and John, you've been seeing a lot of each other, haven't you?
Yes, a certain amount.
Is there some trouble?
I don't know, Sally.
You mean you won't tell me?
If I knew, I'd tell you. When I know, I will.
You promise?
I promise.
I was free for 3 nights. And then yesterday, last night, you were in my dreams again, Doctor. I wish you hadn't been.
Tell me about it.
I went back to the house. I had to see the stranger. I had to find out what he was thinking, what he was doing. About me. About Sylvia.
Hello? What brings you here on such an awful night?
I knew that sooner or later he would ask me for money. That I'd only exchanged one blackmailer for another. It was then that I noticed the poker. Why, Doctor? Why? Why should you be in my dreams? Why should I want to kill you? Will it never end? Will it always go on like this, night after night?
Don't worry, Preston. It's all over now.
What do you mean?
You'll never dream again. Not this dream.
No, it can't be. It can't be true.
Come along, Sally. I'll get you a drink.
I don't understand, Peter. Why?
He had to tell it. There was no other way.
Everything was a lie. His whole life. His love for me.
No, Sally, not everything. I could use a lot of big words which would mean nothing to you. He was a very sick man, Sally, schizophrenic. A man split in two. And the two halves were completely divorced. He is David Garrity, deserter, criminal, murderer. He did kill Sylvia. The rest was mostly fantasy. The stranger wasn't Sylvia's husband. He was a French detective. He'd been investigating Garrity for a long time.
But he looked and acted and talked so sure, so sane.
It always happens that way. But it's all over now.
Peter. Peter.